your beginnings,
Yeah.
and I mean starkness in all senses of the word, because until you were 6 years old, you were literally stark naked.
Absolutely.
Not a stitch of clothing
No.
until you were six. Tell me, first of all, why? Why was that the case?
And I tell this story because I think it's the story of most Ghanaian youth. And therefore, to make a clear statement that I'm a symbol of their hope. And it's simple. I was growing up in a village. So I was not a pampers, person where mommy would put pampers on you. No. So you are allowed to run free and do what you needed to do and be cleaned up.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was growing up. And that was also part of your whole building resistance in the compound, because you can imagine that. You didn't wash your hands and you were rolling all over the floor and
Playing with
playing with the animals, and that was youth. That was growing up.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the thing that I picture in my mind is that you wouldn't have been alone. You wouldn't have been the only kid in the village, walking around with no clothes on.
Certainly.
There would have been lots of others.
And this was even me growing up in the chief's house, the chief's compound.
That's right, because your father was
the chief.
The chief.
Yeah, so there would have been other kids, even in much more difficult circumstances. Probably walking around, but sick.
Yeah.
But at least I was healthy, running around.
Did you know that you were at a disadvantage in comparison to other children in other parts of the country or the world? Did you feel a sense of lack?
No, thank God, no. I think there's something which should take all of that is just gratitude. You're just grateful you are alive. You're just happy that you are alive. And for you, what the circumstances was the best you could get.
Yeah.
You didn't really have the opportunity to peer across the window to see another child your age, even if you did. It was just, it didn't really register. It didn't really register.
And even beyond the age of 6,
Yes.
I mean, you were not living in the lap of luxury, all the way up to when you wrote your common entrance,
Yes.
at which point I'm assuming you were a teen?
Yeah, 12.
12.
Yes.
Even up till that point, you didn't wear shoes.
No, you didn't wear shoes. You walked barefooted to school, went to farm barefooted, did all the domestic chores and including school. And just, of course, your school uniform, you have about 2 school uniform that you use for the entire period, and you'll have stitches on it because even if you go and play pranks and it's torn, mommy would get a needle and sort of hold it together. But these were just things that we just took for, that's the way life was.
And when you say household chores,
Yes.
you actually mean some rather tough labor. I mean, you were working on a farm,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
You'd go to the farm. You'd take part in, seeding seeding the farm, weeding, harvesting, carrying the produce, back home, preparing if it was cassava, peeling it, and doing all sorts of things to prepare the food ready for either market or table. And also domestic chores would involve. We kept horses. We kept horses at home, so we'd go early in the morning to harvest fresh grass, come and cut the grass, feed the horse, clean up the stables before you bath and go to school. And bath and go to school, you didn't have any sponge and soap. So you can imagine after cleaning up the horse, and just having a cold bath, how you'd feel and smell.
Now that's a thought.
But we're here.
Yeah, indeed we are.
Absolutely.
So at what point did it become clear to you that actually life could be so much better than what you've experienced thus far? At what point did you realize that your circumstances were quite modest?
I think secondary school. So you got to secondary school and everybody arrived. So, you just come from the village. And as I said, I brought my chop box to the school compound, reporting for school, and my slippers and sandals were still neatly packed.
Inside
in
the
the
chop
side,
box.
my feet still brown with dust, and then the prefect, where's your slippers? I said, it's in the box. Now he takes my keys and opens the chop box and gives me my slippers to slip it on. And then you go to the dormitory, and you have all reported Form 1, and people are coming from, some people have flown in from Accra on a plane. Then suddenly you get to realize that, look,
there's levels to this thing.
There's a level to this thing, and then you begin to then settle in and observe, but there was just one focus. We're here to study. And for me, that was my number one focus. That was the leveler.
Yeah.
That was the classroom.
And I mean, clearly you took advantage of that and your focus saw you through. But you're a human being.
Yes.
So I wonder, did you have certain moments when you sat quietly and thought about your circumstance in comparison to others and felt unlucky or unfortunate, or that things were unfair?
No. So as I said, for me, education was a leveler, and whatever measure was the measure of success in the class. This was a student, and I was doing extremely well in class. So whether you were better clothed than me or eating better than me, it didn't matter. If they came to distribute the exam papers, I got my number 2, number 3, and that was where everybody looked to see who was picking the first, the second, or the third prize.
Yeah.
So really, that was the tool for comparison. It wasn't all those material stuff. And so that kind of gave you the energy, the adrenaline to want to do more.
Yeah. That's a fantastic lesson right there.
Yes.
That the importance of focusing on what you're
Matters.
best at, on what is important. Just removing all the noise and honing in on what matters. At the end of the day, this is what will be judged by.
Absolutely.
Not the shoes we're wearing.
No, not the shoes you're wearing.
Indeed.
Yes.
What a thought.
Yeah.
If you just joined us, we're talking to Alhassan Andani. He is the chief executive of Stanbic Bank Ghana. He's our guest on I Survived on the Super Morning Show, and he has quite a tale. But the lessons, in fact, if you just joined, there are probably loads more lessons to learn from the life that Mr. Andani has lived. And in a short while, we'll give you the chance to ask him questions as well. If there's something that you would like to know about the man himself, Mr. Alhassan Andani, please, we'll give you the chance to do that later on the show. But so now at this point in your story, we're in secondary school.
Yes.
You're beating everyone academically, and clearly your future is bright. Did you start to imagine what that future would be at that point? Did you start to have dreams like, I'd like to be the CEO of a bank? Or, did you start to have visions of a future, brighter future for yourself?
Oh, yes. I mean, in school, and I'm sure the school of our time, all of us, and when I say at least in the top 4 of the class, you were always in the top 4 of the class. You want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer. Of course, I wanted to be a doctor. And the big issue was I had a huge doctor figure in my family. So the head of my family was a medical doctor, and also my big brother. So he was a huge figure, and therefore, you kind of all aspire to be like
Your big brother was a doctor as well?
medical doctor. Yes,
Wonderful.
Dr. Andani. Dr. Andani, and then, So those were the kind of mentors, those are the kind of big figures we looked at. There was another brother of mine was a big macroeconomist, Zibliman, and, so there were people already in the family who had gone through and then, set the pace. And we're all looking to be like them. But certainly managing director of the bank was the last of my
Not
thoughts.
at that time.
Not at that time.
So the hope was to become a doctor.
Yes.
And of course you were on track to achieve it because you were certainly beating everyone in school.
Not everyone. There were some very clever boys as well who gave you a stretch.
It was the shoes that gave them.
and girls.
So then it was time to go to university.
Yes.
Actually, you went to sixth form in a different school, didn't you?
Yes, so I did Ghana Secondary School and in Tamale from Form 1 to Form 5.
Yeah.
That's up to 1978, and did sixth form in Tamale Secondary School.
Right.
So the two big rival schools, kind of I sit in between them, making peace.
Oh, wonderful. Now, you had an interesting dorm mate at some point, didn't you?
Interesting dorm mate. I'm sure I have several interesting.
Or was it in university
Yeah.
that you shared a room or a dorm with somebody who is a very prominent Ghanaian today?
Yes, I mean in secondary school I did
Secondary
share
school.
a dorm with one of the prominent Ghanaians.
Which one? Which prominent Ghanaian?
It's a very prominent Ghanaian. I
Yes,
should leave
yes.
it at that.
Oh, so you don't want me to spill the beans?
No.
I was going to. Okay, but of course, when you moved to Accra, the circumstances then became very different.
Yeah.
You came from being the least or the most disadvantaged
Yes.
to perhaps in your community the most affluent. right?
Absolutely.
Tell us about that.
So I get into secondary school. I was doing pretty well. My brother took a very keen interest, and then I came into university and then came to live with him. And he was a medical director at the police hospital.
Wow.
And we lived in Cantonment. So this is my journey. So
Wow.
from Banvam through the dusty streets of Tamale to university and living in cantonments. And so, as I said, my brother was a medical director, police hospital. We had a decent bungalow in cantonments.
How
I
old
still
were
drive
you?
past that
bungalow?
That bungalow.
How old were you at the time?
Oh no, I was getting into university 18, 19,
Nice.
and we had then videos had started coming out. I remember the video club where we used to go and borrow our cassettes, Troika, and we had a Betamax. You remember Betamax?
I remember Betamax,
Yes.
the smaller sort of video
Then
cassette
before
type
VHS
thing.
came up, before
Yeah.
all these complexities, we had color television at home.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then of course life changed completely. I became what you called in the parlance, graduated to be a dadaba. He looked very well after me.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Oh goodness, and I mean it's cantonments, right?
Yes.
I mean I'm 40 years old, and I still dream of living in cantonments. so certainly you had arrived.
Yeah.
How did that affect you?
No. So look, we're still very, very, very well grounded. We're not the rotten dadabas. We still, sort of. His attention was just to make sure that you're doing well in school. So we apart from of course having the privilege to watch those movies those days, but not much. We still stayed focused to finish school and to get on to bigger things. We didn't get all the big cars to drive around and all to do go to a nightclub. No, I never went to a nightclub. And
Really?
No,
Never?
never been to a nightclub.
Like to this day?
No, never been to a nightclub.
I think that's our headline. Alhassan Andani has never been to a nightclub. It's just not your thing.
No, it's just
Is
not
that
my
it?
thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, that was just it. And he had lots of books. So I had, trawled through his library, reading anything that I could lay my hands on.
What sort of stuff did you like to read most?
So I loved economics. I loved management. I loved leadership books. Those were kind of books I read lots of. Yeah. But I did physics, chemistry, maths, in secondary school. So
Of course,
that
yeah.
kind of creates a lot of you're quite curious, when you do those subjects, and you're quite alert, and you want to take in more.
But still, nothing to do with banking at that point in your life.
At that point, still nothing to do with banking, but I loved economics. Again, as I said, my big brother was in econometrics, and I loved. I read some of his books,
Yeah.
and also when I went to university, I picked up economics, and I liked it.
Let's put this alongside the typical upbringing of a Ghanaian child today.
Yeah.
Until 6, you didn't even own clothing.
No.
And then, after 6 until you got to secondary school, no shoes.
Yes.
And then you were thrown into an environment where you realized that not everybody was like you.
Absolutely.
In spite of all this, you kept your focus and got through and were performing amazingly in school. Today's young Ghanaian grows up with so much,
Yeah.
even in the village.
Yeah.
Even in the village. Do you think we are at a disadvantage as a nation because our young people are not exposed to the realities of some of the problems we expect them to solve when they take up positions in the future?
I think the reality of the situation, information is now, abundant, at all sources, and it's about parental care, and the variety of information kids can get these days, and what they use with it. Because I talk to my kids, and I find them extremely informed, better informed than I was at their age. But again, are we getting scared? I mean, is it that what of course we don't want them to do is to go back and relive our stories.
Yeah.
The reality of our story should not be lost on them. But is it realistic to say they should go back and relive your particular story? No. But the reality of what I've described from youth till now is still happening across the country. That reality must sit with our kids. And wherever they are, they must be aware of that. And these are the problems that we were preparing them to solve. But there's just too much information. There's an information overload, and we just have to work with the kids to understand how we keep them focused whilst they absorb all of this.
Wow. We're talking to Alhassan Andani. He, of course, is the Chief Executive of Stanbic Bank. It's our I Survived series, and we're learning how Mr. Andani survived, how he became the Alhassan Andani, in spite of very, very humble beginnings. And the lessons just keep pouring out of him. When we come back, we'll find out what the key principles are of his life. He shared these before, and we're going to expand on them. We'll hear them and then expand on them. Then we'll find out whether he made any mistakes or whether indeed he got it right at every step till today. We'll find out whether people have ever let Mr. Andani down, and how does he deal with it. And then, of course, Christmas is a time of hope, so we'll look into the future together with our guest. Stay tuned. That's all to come on I Survived on the Super Morning Show on Joy. Delivery.
Coffee in your cup and Joy on the set. The Super Morning Show is always the best bet on Joy 99.7 FM.
Yes, indeed. And it's 18 minutes past 8. We're talking with Alhassan Andani, the Chief Executive of Stanbic Bank. We're learning his life story on I Survived. And so far, what a story. Not a stitch of clothing until 6 years old. And then going through his education without shoes or any of the things we take for granted today. But still, really blowing away the competition academically until the point where we catch up on his story at the conclusion of sixth form, where he studied physics, chemistry, and mathematics with a rather scientific future in mind. How it turned into banking, we're about to find out. So, Mr. Andani, why don't we pick up from there? You know, you finished your A-levels and went to university. And tell us about that experience.
So as I said, so most science students, you want to become a doctor, you want to become an engineer. My big thing was to become a doctor.
Yeah.
Didn't get into medical school, and went to University of Ghana to do agriculture. And that was my story. So I did agriculture. I was very passionate about agriculture economics, and left in '84. And so we're supposed to be the group graduating in 1983.
Right.
Yeah, and went on Naluta and were sent home for a year.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
So we came back and graduated in 1984.
Right.
And that's where banking started. So I actually picked up, during the agricultural economics class, a very strong interest in development finance. And
Right.
Fortunately, during the national service, I got sent to SSB Bank to work in the development finance division. And SSB was really, really a turning point for me. Great people in there, great teachers, very experienced bankers, great learning facilities. And for me, it was just a continuation of school.
Yeah.
That was it. It was a continuation of school. Got in there and immersed myself. 2 years national service could have almost been like an MBA for me.
Imagine. Yeah. So, I mean, if those you worked with at SSB at the time, if they were to describe you, what's your colleague Alhassan Andani like? What were they likely to have said? How would they have described you?
So I was quite gregarious. I mean, I was quite warm with my colleagues, but I was very serious. They knew that I loved my job, and I hung out with some of the best.
Yeah.
I always say that choose your friends. So I chose real good friends who made sure that they guided me. Friends who were the likes of Nian Sajay, Mr. Wemaga. They were all very senior people who kind of gave you the upper stretch. And then on the lateral stretch, you have the Robert Bentles, who became managing director of one of these banks. Yeah. So they kind of give you the lateral stretch, and that's how you develop. You know, I always say choose your friends, those that will give you above you, who will give you that vertical stretch, and you know, your colleagues serious or who will give you that lateral stretch, and then keep you challenged at all times. You know, so yeah, my friends in SSB might say I was not very loud, though, but I was very studious, very serious with my work, and absolutely focused. Yes.
Were you doing this consciously, deliberately, with a big goal in mind at the end? You know, picking your friends and determining who to spend time with and who to learn from. Were you doing this with sort of a big master plan in mind, or were you just fortunate to be surrounded with great people?
No, I wouldn't say there was a big master plan. I was fortunate, and also just didn't have that inner drive to go overboard on anything. You know, it just stay within you know, a measured band, and for me, focus. But to whether there was a big master plan that I was sort of scheme around, no, I wouldn't say there was a big master plan. Good fortune. Yeah. Good fortune.
So by the time you concluded your 2 years national service, did you then know that banking is the thing for you? Had you then, you know, settled on it as a career?
Yes, absolutely had settled on banking and as a career. And especially with development finance. It was a very rich beginning for me. So this is the aspect of banking that takes you into the bowels of, you know, companies, and you know, not just existing companies, but new ideas that would evolve into big companies, and how to put it together. So for me, that was really it for me. And when I finished, I did so well. So they brought us back from national service. I think we're quite like 8 national service people who are all re-engaged, and I was re-engaged back into that development finance unit. You know, and that's really for me what gave me the grounding in banking. And I built a lot of technical competency. They had a rich library, you know, with all this American Institute of Bankers books. I read it page to page, good books, you know, and God bless their librarian, Mr. Yanka was the librarian. You know, he would tell you I was always either at my desk or in the library.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Fantastic. The days when banks had libraries.
Yes. SSB had a library.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So you're either sitting at your desk working, and we didn't have type, you know, this typewriter. You wrote all your products, your project work longhand. And went and sat with a typist to actually type it for you, and you come and proofread it again, then send it to your senior man to read and correct before it goes through the approval process.
Early 80s,
Early
right?
80s, yes.
Yeah.
Early 80s. So please don't think that we've not come too far. You know, there were no computers. You have to go home and sit and write all these feasibility reports, you know, longhand, come and give it to a typist and we had a typing pool. I'm sure when you talk typing pool, what is the typing pool?
Yes, basically a bunch of trained typists in the room. You go there and hope one of them is free to, you know,
and you
type
have to be
your
extremely
work.
nice to get the best ones to do your work.
Imagine
for you.
that's a skill set that you had to develop as well, no doubt.
Yes.
So following the 2 years at SSB, talk us, you know, briefly through the
so I
career.
got engaged in XSB 85, 86, you know, and stayed at the development finance unit. 87, I think October, I was transferred to Bolga at a very young age as the regional project manager.
Wow.
You know, and that was the upper region. So there was no upper west, upper east. It was just the upper region. So I was based out in Bolga, looking after the development finance business there. And we had an input credit scheme in the Tono Via irrigation area where I supervised the input credit scheme. I also represented the bank on projects like, you know, Upper Quarry was a big project at the time. Fastcom was a big thing. ICO was a big thing. And we had a couple of hotel projects, you know, in WA. So I was kind of covering all that area as what they call a regional project manager. I had 18 technical officers working with me, you know, at a very young age of about 26, 27. I was, you know, so it's quite an immersion for me. And working with the rural, you know, farmers. So I delivered credit as small as 500 Ghana cedis. I delivered credit as, you know, you actually pay for water at the irrigation to the irrigation company to supply water. You pay the Fastcom to plow. You pay them to supply seeds. You pay them to supply insecticides. Chemicals, and that was the kind of project. So you were really on the ground, seeing how the farmers. And then when they harvest, you stand by, and all these Accra women will come in to buy tomatoes, or they'll sell their rice to the rice mills, and you recovered your facilities. And then in the next moment, I was an alternate board member at the ICO, representing the bank.
Representing the bank on a board?
Yes.
How old were you by then?
26. That time, I remember Mr. Molbila was the regional minister. He was the chairman of ICO, and I'll go and sit there, listening to all those wise people and growing.
Growing indeed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's keep going. Let's explore this to today. From that point to today. Just a quick walkthrough. So I came back to Accra in 1990, and then I was granted an Italian government bursary to go and study banking and finance in Milan. So I was in Milan 91, 92, and came back as with a master's in banking and finance. And it was shortly after that, 93, I moved on to Standard Chartered Bank. I think I wanted some more challenge. So I moved my career on to Standard Chartered Bank. And what were you at Standard Chartered Bank? What did you do there?
In Standard Chartered Bank, I was a corporate relationship manager. So I joined as a corporate relationship manager. And for me, really, my big lift in banking was in Standard Chartered Bank. I got in there, and they appointed me as a corporate relationship manager, sent me to work in the Kumasi area, where I worked with a great guy, Mr. Peter Fiagbe, who was my regional manager, and I was assisting him on the corporate finance side. And we worked with that time, Kumasi was timber. All the big timber firms were in Kumasi. Of course, we had Guinness, we had KBL, we had a couple of other industries that, we were kind of banking. And again, that was another baptism, of good banking, good manager, and a real diversified portfolio of timber mills, traders, manufacturers, Guinness, KBL, and all those people. So they were very good people. I mean, the thing about banking is you learn more from the clients than any university can ever teach you.
That's an interesting perspective.
So you get to grow from your client expectations and also the organization. The organization expects you to do more. The client wants solutions. So if you put yourself in that comfortable middle, you grow very well.
And it was still sort of a development finance focus?
Yes, it was still, this was more corporate finance now.
Right.
More corporate banking, just providing direct working capital and fixed long-term loans to develop factories, industries, and stuff like that.
Wonderful.
Trade finance. We did a lot of trade finance because timber was all exported. So we dealt with letters of credit and all the foreign buyers and negotiating all the payment instruments. So quite interesting.
And then from Standard Chartered?
From Standard Chartered, actually, I came back to Accra and developed the portfolio in what we call Accra Tema area. So I actually established a public sector portfolio. When I was in Standard Chartered, we didn't have a single account with any public sector account.
Really?
None. So
You started it?
Yes, my team, we started to build a decent portfolio for Standard Chartered Bank, the likes of Tema Refinery, Ghana Telecom, mention them, all the state organizations. We built a solid portfolio, and within a short period of 3 years, it was probably accounting for 60% of the total corporate book of Standard Chartered Bank.
And this was all in the 90s.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to
in the 90s,
situate it.
And actually, for the first time, we won our Cocoa Board. Standard Chartered became a lead arranger for Cocoa Board syndication in 1999, and I led the group that got the mandate and got featured in the 1999 yearbook of Standard Chartered Group for the Cocoa Board syndication that we won.
You had started to make your print, if you like.
Yeah. And Standard Chartered really was good. Actually put me to work very hard. Yes.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to take a pause, because when we come back, we'll talk about how you finally moved to Stanbic and how that has made you into the prominent personality on the finance front that we know today. And then we'll go back and look at some of the principles by which you live your life and learn about the mistakes and the lessons and so forth. But the story we're hearing on a day like this, Christmas Day, it requires a soundtrack. So Joyful Way Incorporated is with us to give us a bit of music before we get back into our conversation on I Survived with Mr. Alhassan Andani. 13. And today's show has been made special by our guest, very special man indeed, Alhassan Andani. And we've been learning his life story from an infant who didn't wear clothing until he turned 6, who wrote his common entrance exams without wearing shoes, without footwear, going into secondary school, dominating academically, going into university, studying agriculture, and somehow discovering in the middle of one of his courses that perhaps banking might be the way to go. And then, of course, with his usual steely determination, he goes into banking at SSB, later Standard Chartered Bank. In both banks, he certainly made a mark. But now we pick up the story from the point at which Mr. Alhassan Andani is about to become the household name he is with Stanbic Bank. I thought that was a perfect perfect link for you to continue there, Mr. Andani. So yeah, at this point in the story, Stanbic Bank, it was the next move, wasn't it?
No, so the next move was actually Barclays.
So
right. I
right.
actually went on to Barclays in April of 2000 as the Executive Director of Corporate Banking. And so I went to Barclays, Executive Director of Corporate Banking, where, I again built with my colleagues there and under the leadership of Mr. Kwabena Kwanzaa and a fantastic board chair. Nana Rekwampim was the chairman of the board and, built what I think was a winning corporate banking team, and got transferred to South Africa, where I worked with Barclays in Johannesburg, doing coverage work for Barclays Capital. And it was actually whilst I was in Joburg that Standard Bank recruited me.
That's right.
In 2006.
Amazing.
Yes, and then sent me over to Ghana as the managing director.
Indeed.
Yes.
And of course, since 2006, you have been in the leadership of Stanbic Bank in Ghana.
Yes.
And I've got to say, I mean, the team and I were trying to think of another head of a bank in Ghana who has been in a position equal to yours for as long as you have. And we couldn't think of one.
Well, I mean, you look, Frank Edu and Eddie Afar, who built Fidelity Bank, and also Frank Calbank. They've done great jobs. And until the EcoBank was... I'm trying to remember the name of a colleague out there. So they have all
Albert,
been of course Albert after Albert. Great bankers. You know, and these were all kind of contemporaries that we worked together.
Yeah.
Yes.
But for an international bank, for them to have recruited you in South Africa, brought you here to run affairs, and for them to continue to demonstrate their trust in you, your shareholders, your management, your board and so forth, to continue to demonstrate that trust in you, you clearly must be doing something right.
Look, banking is all teamwork. Yes, the business has evolved and become a very strong business, not just in Ghana, but within the Standard Bank Africa franchise. But it's been down to great support. I mean, Standard Bank as a group is 157 years old. So it's quite a very experienced and very rich, very deep organization. So drawing to build from that kind of organization is very difficult. And then you'll get the support from across the entire network. A great team in Ghana. But I always like to tell my colleagues, we are global. We are global and local. So we have
that.
global, and we have the global strength, and then local knowledge and expertise and relationships to be able to build and understand our context. So that's really been the story, and the patience of the shareholders. I keep saying the real story about Stanbic Ghana is the patience of our shareholders. For as long as I've been there, they've allowed us to plow back all of our profits. Yes, they haven't taken any dividends at all. We did pay some dividend in 2013, but we rapidly went and brought it back. And so it's the growth of Standard Bank has truly been the patience of the shareholders who have actually allowed us, to grow, to plow back all the profits year on year, for the last 10 plus years to really grow what this franchise now represents.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Clearly, it's paying off. Yeah. Now, Mr. Andani, I listened to you on JoyFM on Sunday when you were on the show with Mr. Reverend Albert Okran, and it was a fascinating insight into your thought processes and what you consider to be success criteria. And you talked about three principles by which you live your life. I just want to play back what you said so that perhaps we can get a bit more understanding and education on it. So here's Albert Okran speaking to Alhassan Andani on Sunday. Right, forgive us. I think we have a bit of a technical problem to solve here so that we can hear that clip of Alhassan Andani speaking on Sunday. Right, okay. We need to solve this problem. It won't take long. We'll be back.
Inspired, imbued with certain unique qualities. The number one thing I hold dear as a person is self-worth. Right. I believe that God created me distinct, inspired, imbued with certain unique qualities that if I'm not around, somebody will say, this person is not around. And I guide that with jealousy. I just want to believe in myself, that self-worth, that I can make a difference. That I matter is very, very important for me.
Wow, that's powerful. Give us number two.
Number two is, I try to think from first principles. I always try to think from first principle, and that's where my faith comes in. If it were me, how would I want it done to me, said to me, or influenced? I think from first principles. I go to the nothingness of everybody and try to take a journey, to understand the context in which I find myself.
I'm going to explore all these three, but let's go to the third value that you hold dear. The first one is self-worth. The second one is to start from first principles. What will be the third one?
The third one for me is execute. Get things done. Little successes gives you the energy to want to get to bigger things. Just get things done. So you don't wait to have 8/8 to say you are doing well. 2/10 is good to start with. Just get going and keep constantly improving.
Yeah, so there you go. That was the Springboard show on Sunday night. And Mr. Andani, those three principles there, knowing your self-worth, always starting from first principles, and then execution. Yeah. I mean, in your rather fascinating story, could you tell us about instances when you've relied on these principles to push you through?
Kojo, it's my personal life. So, you asked about, you got to school and then suddenly coming from the village and thrown into this. Again, that self-worth for me was, what am I here for? I was here for education. and that was a true measure, and the fact that I could dive in and make sense of what was being taught and demonstrate equality and with my colleagues was just it for me. So nothing else material that was temporary mattered. So that self-worth is there. And for most of my colleagues who've worked with me, I make my point, and my point is not necessarily the best point. So I make a point and make time to listen. That's why we have 2 years and 1 month. So, but certainly there will be no instance that you ask any of my colleagues I've worked with, or even family, that they would not tell you they have heard my point, or I've always made my point whilst I take on board everybody else's point of view, and to arrive at a consensus and make sure that I'm moving along with purpose. So it's always purpose, and for me that's self-worth.
I love that.
Don't think that what you have is inferior. It's a tapestry. It's a tapestry of ideas. God doesn't give it to one person. So that what is in you matters, and when you bring it out and everybody else comes up, then you have that beautiful tapestry that everybody would admire.
I love that. So it's like we're all good for something.
Absolutely.
Like I say sometimes that the razor blade is sharp, but it cannot cut.
It cannot cut a tree.
The axe is
the
sharp.
axe is sharp, but it cannot cut
hair. Indeed, fantastic. Oh, that's a wonderful point there. Then the second one, going back to first principles. How has that helped in your life?
So in fact, for some time now, I spend a lot of time meditating. I just meditate and bring myself to that nothingness, that point that that point of insignificance. And then from there, you can then begin to see the big picture. But if you just feel yourself that you think you know it, and there isn't much you can take on, then your lateral of growth is very limited. So, I spend time, I meditate, and I almost bring myself to a point of insignificance. And from there, you can actually grow. When you bring yourself to a point of insignificance, there's scope to grow. But when you constantly think yourself as that big man, then there's no scope to grow.
I like that.
Yes.
Yeah. So once you remind yourself that unyobia, then you
Unyobia.
know there is something to
there's
strive
something
to.
to strive for.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. All right, let's focus on the final principle there, and I quite like this one because I think it's one that I need to personally build on even more, and that's execution.
Execution. Look, the story of execution is really like when I got into Standard Bank, and my good friend Victor Yeboamenu, who was our finance controller, and with whom I did a lot of strategic thinking with. I said we wanted to be the third bank in 3 years and the best bank in 5 years. Meanwhile, we're number 18.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So he said, how do we do this? I said, come, let's think from first principles. So we put all the numbers down and say, okay, if these are the numbers, and this is what number 1 looks like and number 5 looks like, if we have to, so we modeled it. So it's always go back to first principles. We built what we vision. We built a kind of a vision of what we wanted to look like, and then ticked off. And as I said, in business, that's why we have the 80-20 rule. You don't have to get everything 100%, but you do the 20% effective things, and you get the 80% results that you want.
That's right. I love that.
That's all about education. You do the 20% effective things, and you get 80% of the results that you are looking for.
I hope you're listening. Me, I've got my notebook in front of me. This is like another master's. All right, we're talking to Alhassan Andani. He's the chief executive of Stanbic Bank, and we're learning about his life on our I Survived series. And he's come from far and still has the capacity and potential to go much farther. And we, of course, are enjoying watching him take over the world. But no doubt it's not been easy. Have you ever, or do you ever think back to a mistake you made, which you think, if only you'd got that thing right, you'd have been somewhere different or somewhere closer to where your ultimate dream is?
Look, in my personal life, I should say it's been grace, and I've been absolutely blessed blessed with a very supportive family, blessed with, in my workplace, I've literally been loved by my bosses and my colleagues. And so for those ones, I would say I don't really find those classical mistakes that I would say that I did something that I regret. What I like to talk about more is my professional work. And I think I mentioned it with Reverend Okran that I really had a passion to change transportation in Ghana.
Oh, really?
Yes, I mean, it's still a dream that I still have, because we have the trotros and all the GPRTU. Everything that we have done, in terms of introducing mass transit or whatever, we've not been able to replace GPRTU.
Yeah.
So the big idea was to see, can we work with GPRTU to improve stations, improve vehicles, improve the client experience? And I spent time, 3 years of my first few years in Stanbic Bank, trying to work with them to achieve this dream. And it didn't quite work. I still have it as a big dream. And if I do have an opportunity, I'd like to see what to do to improve urban transportation.
I love that. Tenacity,
Yes.
relentless. I'll tell you who else I learned lessons of tenacity from, and that's our former president, J.A. Kufuor, who coincidentally is on the phone line right now. Mr. President, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
It's very nice to hear from you, and we're glad we're able to speak to you on a day like this. No doubt you have a message for Ghanaians, don't you?
Naturally, the sweet message of the season is what I give to all Ghanaians, both at home and abroad. It's a Merry Christmas. Naturally, we pray for a very happy and prosperous New Year for our great nation, Ghana. This essentially is my message, unless you want me to talk more.
Oh, we always want you to talk more, Your Excellency.
So what do you want me to talk about?
Well, I'll tell you what. This is our 25th year here at Multimedia. Next year, actually, 2020, will be our 25th year. And speaking to somebody like you who has seen so much of our nation's evolution, I wonder if I were to ask, what would be your joy experience? What would you say?
Well, Joy is a leading media house, and I believe you've attained your position by showing responsibility in social sense. And my prayer is that you continue even into your is it Silver Jubilee?
That's correct.
As you say, we'll celebrate your 25th next year. So you continue to show responsibility in your work for the development of our country. Next year, as you know, is an election year. The nation goes to polls to elect a president and also parliament. It's a very important year. Yes, politics moves on propaganda and the sort of thing, but I would expect that Joy would use its good offices to promote sensible, positive, and successful electioneering. Joy must not lend its services to causes that would lead to disruption and destabilization of our country. So this is what I would expect Joy to do for Ghana next year.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. We certainly appreciate the wishes and the advice. And Merry Christmas to you and your family.
I wish you same and the entire establishment of Joy.
Indeed. I hope you'll be doing something nice and relaxing to celebrate the day.
Thank you very much.
Wow, that was special. That was a very special moment there. Former President J.A. Kufuor calling in with a Christmas message. Well, we'll be speaking to many more Ghanaians from across the various sectors of our lives as the show goes on. But our guest in the studio is Alhassan Andani of Stanbic Bank, and we're learning lessons from his life. So you were talking about that mistake, what you call a mistake, you know, with your visions for transportation. But you're still hopeful that it's something you can achieve.
It can be done, yes.
Absolutely. Now, in addition to sometimes letting ourselves down, others let us down too. Have you had that experience? Have you had instances in your personal or professional life when you've been let down by others? And how do you manage such situations?
Yes, several times you've been let down by people, but it's always a privilege to get support. And the thing about working in teams is that you have to learn there's a process and there are tactics. So when people let you down, you tactically, find a way to come back on course, to follow your process. So without really specifically mentioning XYZ, which is not the case.
We'd
but
rather
yes,
not.
We've had instances of being let down.
How about in your personal career development? Are there times when perhaps you've looked to others to help you move to the next step, or to clear a way for you, and then it's turned out that they're not interested in doing that, and you've had to rely on yourself once again?
No, thank God. In terms of my professional career, I've not had to rely on anybody to clear the way. I mean, people have been extremely supportive.
Yeah.
They've been extremely supportive, developed you, giving you opportunities. You didn't have to ask for it. That I must say, I'm deeply grateful to all the huge professionals who've helped me along the way and put me on the pedestal that I am on now. I wouldn't say that I particularly needed something where somebody didn't give to me, or expected a person to clear the way for me to pick up a position. It's been good in terms of professional development and career development. Yes.
Are there any particular people who you feel are worth mentioning in terms of gratitude for mentorship, or anything that has helped you along your way?
In fact, 2 minutes to enumerate, and also at the risk of missing one and being in trouble. But the one I'd particularly mention is Mr. Benton Williams. Benton Williams, for all my dreams to become a banker, was really the one who gave me the opportunity to come in and do my national service with SSB. And then from that point onwards, I just haven't looked back. And I've always remembered the huge favor that Benton Williams, working with my brother, then at AGC, and they remained good friends. And so when he asked me what I wanted to do after school, I said I wanted to go into banking. I said, so what next? I said national service. Then they sent me off to go and do national service at SSB. And Mr. Benton Williams was the managing director. Great man, and he's kind of been a father figure for me, all through my professional journey.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
But along the journey, there's been great teachers, great people who've helped, colleagues, and at this point, we just don't want to start to mention names, because if you miss one, you'll be in deep trouble.
Let's not put you to that risk. That wouldn't be fair. But so many messages are coming through. People with questions for you, and with congratulations for your achievements and so forth. Here's a message from our very own Charles Sam. He says that Mr. Andani is very unique and has an extremely inspiring journey through life. And he sends you his regards, Charles Sam.
Charles is my very good friend. So.
Yes. He made the point here. Yes. Okay, a few messages here. Let's read a few. And by the way, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call if you want to say something to Mr. Andani, or ask him a question, or just wish him Merry Christmas. And also, we want to know what your one wish is for Ghana. If you could make one wish for Ghana, what would it be? So call us with those two things. 0302 216 541, 0244 340 437. Our guest is Mr. Alhassan Andani of Stanbic Bank, and we're doing the I Survived series, learning so much about his remarkable life. Let's read a couple of the messages that have come through via WhatsApp. This one says, KY, Alhassan Andani is a consummate professional, a banker par excellence. I have known him on corporate issues since 1998. His humility has brought him this far. He is the future. Give him Ghana and there would be a paradigm shift. And that is Oscar, who's a publisher of Business Week, giving that wonderful endorsement of Mr. Andani. Give him Ghana and there will be a paradigm shift. Listen, call us 0302 216 541 0244 340 437. Talk to us. Let's talk about the future. What's your one wish for Ghana? And if you have a question for Mr. Andani, call us. Eric Asa in Kufuridia says, Merry Christmas to you, Kojo. Merry Christmas to you, Eric. I really love the gusto with which you employ, the gusto which you employ on your program. As well, I would like you to extend my profound appreciation for reading my contribution via text each day on your show. It's my pleasure, Eric. God bless you dearly. I'm ever ready to do anything to promote. Oh, that's nice of you, Eric. Thank you very much. Oti Wating is on the line from Tema Community 11. Oti, good morning.
Good morning, Kojo.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
So, what's your question? Do you have a question for Mr. Andani?
Yeah, I want to ask Mr. Andani, you have done well. God bless him for you have done well for Ghana. But I want to ask him, as an entrepreneur, new entrepreneurship, somebody has been entrepreneur, start entrepreneur. What is target to give them? This have the good target, you can become successful. You should give something like, do this, you can become success in what you do. What the main something like where to give that person to do this to go forward in life, become successful in what you are doing.
So, advice for entrepreneurs. What advice would Mr. Andani give entrepreneurs? That's a great question. All right, let me write this down. We'll take a few questions and then get answers from Mr. Andani. Ohinawa is in East Legon. Ohinawa, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Kojo.
Well, it's great to hear from you. You sound excited.
Yes, I am, because Mr. Andani is my neighbor.
Oh, wow.
Hey.
he's smiling to himself here.
Yeah. This is the first time I'm calling onto your show, and I'm super excited that I got through.
Oh, we're excited to hear you. So, do you have a question for Mr. Andani?
No, I want to say that Mr. Andani is amazing, a very good banker. I've followed his career, and I'm super proud of you, Mr. Andani. But you need to pass on whatever you have so that we can also be like you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ohinoa. We appreciate your call. Daniel is in North Kanishi. Hi, Daniel. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
It's good to hear from you, Daniel.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
In fact, I'm a service provider. I do a catering work. And in fact, Mr. Andani is somebody that I've met a couple of times. That man is a different man altogether. God bless him. But some of us, we wish to grow like that man. We want to wear his shoes one day. He's a very good man. He's a nice man. So I don't have any personal relation with him, but I've done so many functions that I've met that man. Institute of Bankers, Banking Award. I mean, talk of a lot of them. That man is a different man altogether. God bless him.
And God bless you for calling us. We appreciate your call. Let's go to Dan Suman. Here's Nene. Good morning, Nene.
Kojo.
Yes, sir.
Otidane.
Yamina Dumo, now where?
Namina Dumo,
Avishapa.
Afi congratulations. Afi Sena corruption abba.
Amen.
Kojo.
Yes, sir.
I mean, there's no doubt that Andani has done very well for himself and for this country. I just have two short questions for him.
Okay.
One is that when I look at him and those people who come from where he comes from and the story he tells and how he's able to do well for themselves, I wonder what they are doing to the young guys. I mean, the girls and boys that comes from that side of the town to the south, and what they go through in what they do here. I mean, you see these beautiful girls who are carrying, you see these young guys who are pushing trucks in the south.
And I wonder what those people who have achieved something from there, what they are doing to cut the number of people that come from there, so that they give them the opportunity not to go through the struggle that they went through when they were like them.
Right.
And then secondly, I want to know if he has any political ambitions to help in developing the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Nene. Great questions there. We'll get you answers in a moment. Peter is in Bawe. Let's hear Peter, and then we'll get some answers from Mr. Andani.
Okay, thank you very much.
Merry Christmas, Peter.
Hi, Alhassan. This is Peter Busweki.
Oh, Peter, yes. Hello, Peter.
Hi. Alhassan Andani has been a great motivation to some of us, and in Barclays especially. I worked with him in Ghana and South Africa. A great guy. Well, I know, Alhassan, you are also a traditional ruler in the north. My question to you is, what's next after banking?
Another great question. What next after banking? All right, maybe a few more calls. Salifu is in Kufuridia. Salifu, good morning.
Good morning, Marco Joe.
And Merry Christmas.
The same to you, Kojo. Yeah, I'm happy that you brought my brother Andani in the studio. All what he said, I experienced it with him in SSB. Telling him that this Salifu, I was at the training department. And he was at the department, he gets said, with Mr. Aqua, Mr. Owusu, Mr. Benton. I said, Mr. Andani is somebody that when he came, we didn't even know he was an officer. He would mingle with junior staff, and whatever you tell him, Andani will laugh and say, oh, Salifu, let's do this, let's do that. So Andani is somebody who has humbled himself. He is focused, even when when they wanted to frustrate him, he was focused. And then look at him now. So I'm very, very happy for Mr. Andani. Mr. Andani, this is Salifu. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Salifu.
Oh, that's nice. All right. I think we've got a handful of questions that we can get answers to before we engage a few more callers. So here's what I wrote down. Somebody wanted to know, what would your advice be to entrepreneurs?
Yes.
There was a question about what are you doing for the up and coming from your part of the country? And any political ambitions?
Yeah. Look, I like to address the second one, which is the what I'm doing for the up and coming, and the question my friend from Dansuman asked about, my sisters, my brothers who are here, doing menial work, and that is why I share the story that I share. That you don't have to be in a hurry. You do not have to be in a hurry. Go through the paces, put yourself through school. Just concentrate on learning, and it's a matter that is actually taking the attention of myself and a lot of my colleagues on how we can reverse, this kind of drift into Accra by the young boys and girls doing these menial jobs. Brilliant, strong boys and girls, and that actually would dovetail into what after banking and the fact that I'm a traditional ruler. I'm going to take that job extremely seriously. I'm going to serve my king and my kingdom very well, and part of it will be working with my colleague chiefs to see what programs we can put in place to stop that drift of our best and brightest to come into the streets of Accra and Kumasi to do menial work. So that's what I'll do. I would apply myself to the very best of my ability to ensure that we can improve household incomes, improve education, and put these young boys and girls to good work. Entrepreneurs, look, this world is driven by entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs require patience. I know great entrepreneurs. I've worked with the likes of, Zoomline, Mr. Japan. And again, 25 years of JoyFM. Yeah. This is a true story of Ghanaian entrepreneurship. This joy and everything that you have spun out of the radio is a true Ghanaian success story of enterprise. It's a true African success story of enterprise. And if you meet the kind of professionals who've come through JoyFM and all your subsidiaries, you meet them. These are consummate professionals in everything that they do. And that is what entrepreneurs focus. So thank God I do know Mr. Chum very well. He's a brother. For Chum is a brother. And the focus with which he's done this. So entrepreneurs just need to stay focused. Don't drift. Look what NS Chemist is doing. Today in Ghana, we have our own brand of, retail, not just moving from manufacturing to a retail chain of pharmaceuticals. That's another good example of Ghanaian enterprise. Stay focused, build, use talent, use people. Very good talent, look after them, train them, and make your companies evolve. Build companies or enterprises separate from yourself. The enterprise is absolutely separate from the individual. In fact, it gets to a point, the enterprise is not very soon, when you get going as an entrepreneur, you employ great guys like, Kojo and all the people who work here. Who is Katie to say that he is the enterprise? So the enterprise just becomes too big, and the interest of the clients even supersedes those who work in there, and it just gets a life of its own. So it's about being patient and build and use professionals. Kenyans like to hold things around themselves, So for me, that's a story about advice to enterprises, But my real attention is to what I can do personally to help all the young boys and girls from the north and other parts of the country who are drifting into Accra, and that's why I spend time sharing my story. My story is their story, but just that maybe I was a bit more patient. I had a lot more parental care, So the parents who are, looking after this should be a bit more patient with them and put them through school and give them some training.
Any political ambitions?
No, I don't have any political ambitions.
Well, somebody wants us to hand over Ghana to you
I don't
and see a paradigm shift.
I don't have political ambitions.
We're talking with Alhassan Andani, and it's your turn to put your questions to him and, give your comments, send them through. Also on Twitter, make sure you use the hashtag JoySMS. Manasseh Azuri Awuni has been tweeting. He says, Mr. Alhassan Andani is lifting souls and challenging dreams on the Super Morning Show. That's true. That's true. Yeah. And listen, you can also give us your wish for Ghana for 2020. Somebody says, Eriafe Siao says, my wish is for our road contractors to stop wash and wear roads. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Riafe. All right. More to come on the Super Morning Show with Mr. Alhassan Andani. Manasseh is actually here. Just as soon as I read his tweet, he turned up to present a copy of his book to Alhassan Andani. The book is The Fourth John. It's the story of John Dramani Mahama. Manasseh actually will be joining us later this week so we can talk about this book, this all-important book that he's written about the life and career of one of our former presidents, John Dramani Mahama. Fascinating stuff. Just 5 seconds of history just happened in front of me, and there's even more after these. 9:56 on the Super Morning Show, and it's Christmas. We won't have a 10 o'clock bulletin, but we'll wrap up our show in style in just a moment. We'll read so many of your tweets and texts and so forth, and end things beautifully with our guest, Alhassan Andani. First of all, happy Christmas to all of you who have chosen to spend your Christmas morning with us here on the Super Morning Show. We appreciate all of you who are tuned in, particularly you, Dr. Emanuela Abasa-Konedu. You're listening to us from Adenta with your family, and we're so glad you're spending Christmas morning with us. Now, I told you that throughout the day we'll be speaking to some very, 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 very big Ghanaians who have Christmas messages for us all. You'll never guess who I have on the line now. It's the Vice President, His Excellency, Dr. Baumia. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Well, it's good to speak to you, and no doubt you have something you'd like to share with the nation on a day like this.
Yes, thank you very much. We are almost at the end of 2019, and we thank God for all the mercies that He has shown us during the year. On behalf of my family and myself, I would like to wish all Ghanaians a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. May 2020 be a year of good health, peace, and prosperity for all. May may God continue to bless our homeland, Ghana.
Oh, thank you. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Now,
thank you so much.
Just before you leave us, next year will be the 25th anniversary of the Joy brand. And so today we've been asking people to tell us what their Joy experience is. You know, if there's something memorable that sums up the Joy experience for you?
Well, I think that JoyFM for 25 years, first of all, congratulations in advance. I think that you've been a very a major addition to the freedom of information and communication, and you've really contributed a lot to political discourse in this country, allowing people to have access to information, putting all of us on our toes. I think that Ghana is so much the better for this Joy brand. It's a brand that I think all Ghanaians will appreciate, and we thank God for you being here.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. And we wish you and your family the most pleasant of Christmases.
And please, to the whole JoyFM crew, please, Merry Christmas to you guys. You're doing a good job. Please keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, that's special. That's very special. The Vice President there with his Christmas message to us all. You know Dr. Baumia?
Sure.
Yes.
You know very well.
Yes, banking circles, no doubt. Yes, you know each other very well from there. Sorry?
And in school.
And in school as well. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. Well, we still have even more surprises coming your way on this very special edition of the Super Morning Show. Our guest, of course, Alhassan Andani of Stanbic Bank.
Jingle bells, jingle all the
All right, now make this festive season different. Eagles Hotels, the Palms Residence, the Planters, and Lodge by Eagles are all offering you the opportunity to celebrate Christmas in an awesomely different way. From the 20th of December until the 5th of January, enjoy an all-inclusive package, accommodation, breakfast, lunch, dinner, laundry, gym, pool access, even some drinks, all of them together at an unbelievable price of 600 Ghana cedis for single occupancy and 700 for double per night. Now, if your thing is sports, then there's golf, football. If you're about adventure, then there'll be tours and sightseeing trips. If you're a party lover, well, you're not left out either, with fun beach parties, nightclub sessions, barbecues, and intriguing karaoke nights. You really need to be a part of this. For reservations or inquiries, call the reservation hotline, which is 0550 000 Okay, or send an email to reservations@eaglesproperties.com.gh. A completely different Christmas experience from the 20th of December until the 5th of January. So you can also be part of the most Afrocentric event of the year. Join the world-class artists who will be performing this December 28th at the LWAC Sports Stadium, and connect with all Ghana has to offer. Get your tickets from Cupcake Boutique, Airport Shell, Pink Berries, or just call 020-2297-929. Surfline is the official Wi-Fi service and partner to our Afrochella experience this Saturday. I'll see you there. Right, text messages on the Super Morning Show are brought to you always by Glyco Travel Insurance Policy. Glyco, we cushion you for life. And Afrodan, your back must last you a lifetime. And we all know how travel abroad can be exciting, but sometimes full of uncertainty. So cover yourself with the Glyco Travel Insurance Policy, which takes care of medical emergencies and hospitalization, loss of passports and driving license or ID while abroad, loss of checked-in baggage, travel of one immediate family member to your bedside, trip cancellation expenses, hijacking, and so much more. Talk to them today on 020-2222-113 or 0555-305547. Let them help you plan for a peaceful travel abroad. Glyco Travel Insurance, cut the hassle, all convenience. Glyco Life, they cushion you for life. Now your calendars are marked. The JoyFM Kid Ticket Fever is kicking off this Friday, 27th of December. from 9 p.m. till late in the foyer of the Accra International Conference Center. There'll be welcome drinks, something to munch on, and late night hot pepper soup. Don't miss it. Rate is a cool 150 Ghana cedis. Get in character with your bell bottoms and your afro and your platform shoes and afro wigs, and come along and enjoy a fun night. For tickets, call 0540 106466. The JoyFM Kitike Fever is supported by Hyundai, new thinking, new possibilities, Vital Mineral Water, pure, rich and natural, Johnny Walker Black Label, keep walking, Guinness Smooth Stout, distinctive quality, and brought to you by your superstation Joy 99.7 FM. This is the party for 50-year-olds and above, the JoyFM Kitike Fever. Let's boogie. Now, Joyful Way has been here. They are celebrating the Word of God today with the Living Word. Actually, it's tomorrow. Living Word at the National Theatre. The afternoon session is at 2 p.m. The evening session is at 6:30 p.m. Daughters of Glorious Jesus will be there. So listen, get tickets from Bachana Total, Airport Shell, House of Joy in Mataeko, and Engine Filling Station. Not forgetting the Engine Filling Station at ACP Junction. Okay. Log on to myjoyfulway.com and click on buy ticket to get yourself one, or just dial star 920 star 50 hash. Select option 2 and buy your ticket. Event ticketing is powered by iPay Ghana, and the main sponsors are EcoBank, Type, IT Consortium, and supporting sponsors are Stanbic Bank, GTP, Nouvelle Beauty College, and Enterprise Life. Media sponsors are City FM, Class Media Group, Sunny FM, Joy FM, and Sign Language. Explosion of Joy 2019. The Living Word. Now, Melcom are having the biggest Christmas sale ever. Once again, walk into any Melcom supermarket and get a whopping discount of up to 50% on thousands of items, which range from world-class branded electronics, furniture, home decor, houseware, and kitchenware. Melcom is still your one-stop supermarket for the festive season. Terms and conditions apply. Melcom, where Ghana shops.
Jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse.
All right, 5 minutes past 10 on the Super Morning Show. This is where we're going to tie a bow on everything. We've had the most amazing conversation with Mr. Alhassan Andani. And in addition to everything you've shared with us, I think the perfect way for us to wrap up is by hearing your Christmas message, to the banking world, the finance world, and perhaps the people of Ghana as a whole.
Well, on the occasion of Christmas, and it's a big thing for Christmas. It's the birth of Christ, mercy to the world. 2019 has been merciful to us as bankers. We have recovered, and corporate Ghana is recovering along with us. The government has been supportive. Our clients have been patient with us, and our staff particularly have gone through tough times. For all of this, I said, let's have a Christmas cheer. Let's enjoy the Christmas and look to a brighter 2020. So to corporate Ghana, I say Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Well, Merry Christmas to you too. And I guess it's only fair that I ask you to give us your Joy experience as well.
Well, my Joy experience, as I said, for me, Joy FM and all the subsidiaries that has been spawned out of this, has been it's an African, a Ghanaian success story of enterprise. This is a company that started from very humble beginnings. The only radio in town was Radio Ghana. And today the story is there for everybody to see. And the professionals that have, have come through Joy FM and have been produced by this establishment. It's been fabulous. And I should say that if you were to stop broadcasting, there will be a year-long demonstration in this country by your own clients. So you represent much more than the entrepreneurs. You now represent much more than yourselves. And we can only wish that Joy would move on from success to success. And as said, hold a reasonable line of peace and sensible discourse in this country.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of all of my colleagues here, at JoyFM and the multimedia group. We have to thank Stanbic Bank and you personally, Mr. Andani, for the wonderful relationship we've enjoyed all these years. Long may it continue and grow and evolve into something greater and better.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you for
Thank you
making
very
the time
Thank you.
to spend Christmas morning with us. That's no mean thing. We appreciate it so much. Alhassan Andani, everyone. Boy, it's been such a show, such a memorable show, and I'm so glad you spent the time with us this Christmas morning. We're back tomorrow with another edition of the Super Morning Show, and until then, though, I thank you all so much. I love you from the bottom of my heart, and I appreciate you ever so much. And as we look forward to a brand new year, 2020, let's keep the thoughtful prayer of Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams in our minds as we enjoy this festive season. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.